In a quiet village surrounded by towering mountains, there lived a wise old Zen master who was known for his unshakable peace. No matter what happened, the fiercest storms, the bitterest winters, or the hottest summers, he remained calm like a still lake in the morning mist. A young warrior, proud and headstrong, had heard of the master and wanted to test him. He believed that strength came from being powerful, from being unbreakable. One day he traveled to the monastery and challenged the master. "Teach me the secret of your strength," the warrior demanded. "Show me how to become unshakable like you." The Zen master smiled and led him to a clearing in the forest. There, two trees stood side by side. One was a mighty oak, tall and thick, its branches stretching high into the sky. The other was a slender bamboo, bending gracefully with the wind. The master gestured toward the sky where dark clouds were forming. "A storm is coming," he said simply. "Stay here and watch." The young warrior crossed his arms, unimpressed. "What does a storm have to do with strength?" The master said nothing. Soon the wind began to howl. Trees swayed, leaves tore from their branches, and thunder roared through the valley. The storm grew fiercer, rain pounding against the earth. Then, with a mighty crack, the great oak tree, so proud, so rigid, snapped in half. Its massive trunk, once thought unbreakable, lay shattered upon the ground. But the bamboo, it bent, it swayed, it bowed with the wind, and when the storm passed, it stood tall once more, untouched. The warrior stared in disbelief. "Now tell me," the master said, "which is truly strong? The one that refuses to bend, or the one that knows how to yield?" The young warrior fell to his knees, realization washing over him like the rain. All his life he had thought strength meant resistance, that to be strong, he had to be like the oak, unyielding, immovable, hard as stone. But now he understood, true strength was not found in resisting life, but in flowing with it. He turned to the master, his voice quiet. "I see now. Rigidity is not power, it is weakness in disguise. True strength is in knowing when to stand firm and when to bend." The master simply smiled. "Many believe that strength comes from being unbreakable, from standing firm no matter what. But life is full of storms, and those who resist are the first to fall. True strength lies in adaptability, in knowing when to be steady and when to bend, when to hold on and when to let go. The oak falls because it refuses to yield, but the bamboo, it bends with the wind, and so it survives." Sometimes silence is the only answer you need. A young man, troubled by doubt and confusion, traveled across mountains and rivers to meet a Zen master. He had spent years searching for meaning, reading scriptures, meditating for hours, and listening to countless teachers, but his heart was still restless. When he arrived at the monastery, he found the master sitting beneath a cherry blossom tree, gazing at the sky. The young man bowed deeply. "Master, I have come a long way seeking wisdom. My mind is full of questions. What is the meaning of life? What is enlightenment? How do I find peace?" The master turned and smiled. Without saying a word, he stood up and led the young man to a quiet lake nearby. They stood at the edge of the water, the surface so still that it reflected the sky like a mirror. The young man grew impatient. "Master, why do you not answer me? I seek truth, yet you say nothing." The master remained silent. Instead, he reached down, picked up a large stone, and threw it into the lake. The young man watched as the stone crashed into the water, sending ripples outward in perfect circles. The once clear reflection was now distorted, broken into shifting patterns of light and shadow. Then the master sat down and waited. Minutes passed. The young man grew restless. "Master, what does this mean? Are you saying that life is just ripples on water, that everything is an illusion?" Still, the master said nothing. More time passed, and the young man, frustrated, fell silent. He watched the ripples slowly fade. The surface of the lake, once disturbed, became still again. Once more it reflected the sky, as if nothing had ever happened. At that moment, something deep inside him shifted. The master finally spoke. "Your mind is like this lake. When you fill it with questions, thoughts, and worries, you stir the surface. The more you seek, the more ripples you create. But if you let it be, if you allow it to settle, the answer appears on its own." The young man stared at the water, understanding at last. The truth he had been searching for had always been there, waiting, beneath the ripples of his restless mind. He bowed once more, this time not in frustration, but in deep gratitude. We often believe that wisdom comes from searching, from filling our minds with knowledge. But true understanding is not found in constant seeking. It arises in stillness. The more we chase answers, the more we stir the water, but when we stop, when we allow the mind to be quiet, clarity comes on its own. Like the lake, the truth is always there. We just have to let the ripples fade. The teacup that caught the moonlight. In a quiet village nestled between the mountains, there lived an old woman known for her silence. She spoke rarely, but every evening she placed 2 teacups on her porch, one for herself and one for whatever the night would bring. Some evenings the wind would visit, other nights a moth, a whisper, or a memory. But on this night only the moon came. High, round, and glowing, it floated above the garden in still perfection. The old woman poured tea. The steam curled upward like incense, and in one of the cups the moon fell. Not literally, of course, but its reflection shimmered on the surface, resting there like a guest that didn't need to speak. She looked at it, the moon, in her teacup. She lifted the cup to drink, but paused. She saw her own hand, the moon, the stars above, all held in the same fragile bowl. And suddenly, she understood something without needing to explain it. That nothing real could ever be held, only reflected, only touched in stillness, only seen when the water is calm. She placed the cup back down, untouched. She didn't need to drink. She had already received what she came for. And the moon stayed with her the rest of the night. We often try to fix, control, or change our thoughts, especially when they feel overwhelming or negative. But in doing so, we stir the waters of our mind and lose the clarity we're seeking. Just like the reflection of the moon disappears when the teacup is disturbed, our inner clarity fades when we keep poking at every thought, every feeling, every fear. The truth is, not every thought needs your attention. Not every emotion needs to be solved. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is sit still and observe. Give your mind space to settle, like still tea in a quiet cup. The calm doesn't come from effort. It comes from allowing, from breathing, from watching your thoughts float by without grabbing onto them. Next time your mind feels loud, don't rush to fix it. Just wait, just breathe. Let the moon return on its own. The wind that had no destination. There was once a student who asked the old Zen master, "Master, how do I find my purpose in life?" The master smiled gently but said nothing. Instead, he motioned for the student to walk with him into the hills. They wandered in silence through tall grasses beneath wide skies brushed with soft clouds. The wind moved playfully between the trees, dancing in no particular direction. After a long while, the student spoke again. "Master, I asked you something important. How do I find where I'm meant to go?" The master paused and he turned his face to the wind and asked, "Where is the wind going?" The student watched the grass sway, the leaves flutter, the air hum. He said, "Nowhere. It just moves." The master nodded. "It moves not with a destination, but with a presence. It does not seek meaning, it is meaning." The student frowned. "But I'm not the wind. I need to have direction, to know where I'm going, to be someone." The master placed a hand on the student's shoulder, And because you try so hard to be someone, you miss the peace of simply being. They stood quietly as the wind wrapped around them. Then the master whispered, "Purpose is not found in seeking, but in surrender. When you stop demanding a direction, you begin to live in harmony with life itself. The wind has no destination, and yet it touches everything." The student closed his eyes. He didn't understand it all. But for the first time, he felt something lighter than understanding, peace. And the wind moved on, still going nowhere, yet touching everything. When you stop seeking your path, you begin to walk it. The wind doesn't know its purpose, and yet it moves the world. So too, your being is enough. Let go of the chase. Be present. The pebble in the river. A pebble once sat on the riverbank watching the current rush by. The water called to it every day. "Come," it whispered, "let me carry you." But the pebble was afraid. What if I lose myself? What if I'm swept too far? So it stayed where it was, dry, still, and safe. Seasons passed. The river danced under sun and moon. The trees changed clothes. Birds came and went, and the pebble stayed the same, until one night a rain came so soft it felt like a lullaby. The river swelled, reached out, and gently cradled the pebble in its arms. There was no fight, no struggle, just surrender. The pebble rolled forward once, twice, then slipped into the current. For a moment it panicked. It didn't know where it was going. The ground beneath it had vanished. But as it moved, something strange happened. The fear washed away. The pebble realized it wasn't falling, it was floating. It wasn't lost, it was being carried. It passed under bridges, beside fish, between light and shadow. It touched the world it had only ever watched. And in the movement, it felt something it never felt on the shore. Belonging. The pebble smiled inside its stillness. It didn't know where the river would take it, but it didn't need to. The current was kind, and that was enough. Most of us stay stuck in the same place, emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. Not because we're happy there, but because it feels familiar. Like the pebble, we cling to the riverbank because we fear the unknown. But growth doesn't happen on the edge. It happens when we let go. There comes a point when overthinking, waiting for the right time, or trying to control the outcome only holds us back. The river, life itself, is always moving, always offering us new experiences, but only if we're willing to flow with it. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to see the destination. You just need to trust the next step. To allow life to carry you towards something greater than what you're holding on to. If something feels uncertain right now, a decision, a relationship, a dream, remember the pebble. Let go of the fear. Let yourself be carried. You are not falling, you are flowing. The candle that didn't fear the dark. In a village tucked between shadows and stars, there was a little candle no one noticed. It sat quietly on a dusty shelf, unused, unlit, forgotten. Every night the people lit larger lamps, bright, loud, commanding attention. They chased the dark away with fire. But the little candle waited, not in sadness, not in hurry, just waited. One evening, the village was swallowed by a sudden storm. The wind howled, lights flickered, one by one the great lamps went out. The villagers panicked, children cried, shadows crept through the walls. In the quiet panic, a soft voice spoke, "Light the little one." A hand reached up, a match struck, and the candle came alive. Its flame was small dash, but steady. It didn't fight the dark, it stood with it. Inside it, the villagers gathered around, and for the first time they saw that it was enough, not to banish the darkness, but to glow within it. That night, the candle lit more than a room. It lit hearts, it lit courage, and it reminded them that even the smallest light can be a sun when it chooses not to fear the dark. You don't have to be the loudest, brightest, or most confident person in the room to make a difference. You don't have to fix the darkness in your life. You just have to bring your light to it. The candle didn't try to fight the dark, it simply existed within it, and that was enough. In your moments of fear, confusion, or pain, don't look for the perfect answer, the big fix, or the loud solution. Look for the quiet spark inside you, the small action, the one kind word, the deep breath, the gentle truth. Even a small light changes everything when the world feels dark. You are that light, you always have been. The leaf that danced its way down, high in the arms of an ancient tree, a single leaf clung to a thin branch. All around it the world was changing. The wind grew colder, the sky shifted shades. Other leaves had already let go, spinning toward the earth in soft spirals. But this one held on, not out of fear, but because it wasn't sure if it was time. It asked the branch, "How do I know when to let go?" The branch replied gently, "When holding on begins to feel heavier than falling." The leaf was quiet. It listened to the breeze, felt the pull of gravity, the weight of waiting. And one morning it released, not with a tear, but with a dance. It twirled through the air, not as something that had lost its place, but as something that had found its next step. Down it drifted, soft as breath, until it landed on the forest floor, gently, fully, peacefully. There among the others it became part of something new. Not an ending, a becoming. Letting go doesn't have to feel like a fall. It can feel like a dance. If you stop clinging to what no longer nourishes you, we hold on to relationships, habits, thoughts, or identities long after they've served their purpose, because we fear the unknown that comes after release. But life is like the tree, constantly shifting, shedding, renewing, and you are like the leaf, meant to move, to change, to land somewhere new. When something in your life starts to feel heavy, tiring, or tight, ask yourself, is it time to let go and trust the next season of me? Surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Let yourself fall, not in fear, but in grace. The pillow of empty thoughts. There was once a man who could not sleep. Each night as he lay in bed, his thoughts multiplied like stars. Endless, blinking, burning, regret, plans, doubts, what was, what might be, what he should have said, what he feared tomorrow would bring. He tried music, he tried counting sheep, he even tried sleeping potions from the village apothecary, but nothing quieted his mind. One evening he wandered into the mountains, tired beyond exhaustion. He found a small hut where an old woman lived alone. She invited him in, gave him tea, and listened as he poured out the noise in his mind. When he finished, she simply said, "Sleep in my bed tonight, but use this pillow." It was unlike any he had seen. No feathers, no cotton, just a soft woven cover filled with something light. He lay down, expecting nothing. But the moment his head touched the pillow, a silence opened inside him. Not emptiness, but space. His thoughts were still there, but they passed through him like wind through bamboo. Nothing stuck, nothing tangled. He slept deeper than he had in years. The next morning he asked the woman, "What's inside this pillow? It's magical." She smiled. "Nothing," she said. "That's the secret. It's filled with air, with space, just like your mind is meant to be." He left with no potion, no chant, no cure, only the memory of stillness and the understanding that peace is not found in silence, but in space. When your mind is racing, your first instinct is often to fight the noise, to try and push thoughts away, to solve everything before sleep. But the truth is, the mind isn't the problem. The attachment to every thought is. You don't need to shut off your thoughts to rest. You just need to stop clinging to them. Let them come. Let them go, like clouds passing across the sky. Your mind doesn't have to be silent to be at peace. It just needs space. Tonight, when your head touches the pillow, don't ask for a quiet mind. Ask for a spacious one. That's where sleep begins. The cat that slept through the storm. There was a great storm coming. The sky boiled with thunder. The air smelled like iron. Trees braced, birds vanished, even the river held its breath. In the heart of the village, people hurried to secure their homes. Windows were shut, doors bolted, prayers whispered. Everyone prepared, everyone except for a single grey cat. She curled up on the porch of an abandoned temple, her paws tucked beneath her body, her eyes slowly closing as lightning cracked across the sky. "Crazy cat," someone muttered. "Doesn't she know the storm is coming?" But the cat didn't flinch. She didn't hide. She simply slept. Softly, fully, completely. The storm came, winds howled, rain slammed into roofs. The world shook, and still the cat slept, her breath steady, her body loose, her tail gently twitching in her dreams. When morning came, the village stepped outside to assess the damage. But what they noticed first was the cat, stretching under the first golden beam of sunlight. Someone asked, "How did she sleep through all that?" An old monk passing by replied, "She didn't fight the storm. She didn't fear it. She just trusted that it would pass." And it did. Life brings storms, emotional ones, mental ones, even entire seasons of chaos. Your instinct might be to resist, control, or panic when things go wrong. But peace doesn't come from stopping the storm. It comes from not letting it inside you. The cat didn't ignore the danger. She simply didn't invite it into her body. She trusted that she was safe in the moment and allowed herself to rest anyway. You can do the same. When anxiety rises, when fear knocks at your chest, when everything feels uncertain, take a breath. Stay where you are. Trust that the storm is temporary, but your peace can be permanent if you let it. The world can rage around you. You can still curl up inside your calm. The tree that breathed with the stars. There was a tree that stood at the edge of the world. No fences, no roads, no signs. Just open sky and endless space. The villagers called it the Old One, though no one knew how long it had been there. Every night, without fail, it reached its branches toward the stars, as if exhaling into the sky, and every night the stars seemed to lean closer, not shining at the tree, but with it. One evening a traveler wandered through, weary, heartbroken, lost. He collapsed beneath the tree, crushed by 100 thoughts. Why am I like this? Why can't I move forward? Why does the world feel so heavy? But the tree said nothing. It simply stood. Breathing, rooted, the traveler closed his eyes, and slowly, something changed. He could hear the wind brushing through the leaves. He could feel the rhythm in the branches, soft and steady. Inhaling, exhaling, just like him. He opened his eyes and looked up. The stars were still there. But for the first time, he didn't feel small. He felt part of it, of the sky, of the tree, of the breath. The world hadn't changed, but something inside him had stopped fighting. He stood lighter and whispered, "Thank you." The tree made no reply. It didn't need to. It simply breathed with the stars, just as it always had. Zen teaching, real-life application. Sometimes life doesn't give us answers, it gives us space, and in that space we remember how to breathe. You don't need to solve everything in your mind. You don't need to force clarity or push for healing. Like the tree, you can just be, rooted in the now, present with your breath. When the world feels overwhelming, return to the most basic truth. You are here, you are breathing, and that is enough for this moment. Stand still, breathe with life, let the stars do their part. The master who slept while the world burned. There was a monastery built high in the cliffs, surrounded by forest, silence, and stone. The monks there were disciplined, rising before dawn, meditating for hours, eating in silence, walking like whispers. At the center of the monastery lived the master, an old man with gentle eyes and a presence so calm it felt like the earth paused when he breathed. One night, a fire broke out. A violent blaze swept through the valley, eating trees, barns, even nearby homes. Smoke painted the sky black. Panic echoed from the village below. The younger monks raced through the halls, shouting, gathering water, trying to protect what they could. But the master's room remained quiet. Someone shouted, "Where is he? Is he safe?" When they burst through his door, they found him, sleeping, deeply, peacefully, completely untouched. One monk shook him, panicked. "Master, wake up, the world is burning." The master opened his eyes slowly, then smiled. "I know." Confused, the monk asked, "Then why are you not afraid?" The master sat up and said, "Because fear doesn't put out fires and panic only feeds the flames. What burns outside can't harm me unless I let it burn within." Then he stood and walked out into the smoke as if it were nothing more than morning mist. There will be moments in life when everything around you feels like it's on fire. Crisis, conflict, fear, uncertainty. Your instinct might be to panic, react, run, or control. But true peace isn't tested in silence. It's revealed in chaos. You can't always stop the storm outside, but you can choose not to let it inside you. Just like the master, you can learn to meet life's fires with a calm heart and a clear mind. The next time life burns hot, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this fire mine to carry, or am I just feeding it with my fear? Peace doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means you're not being consumed by it. The feather on the edge of sleep. Somewhere between dream and waking, there lived a feather. It wasn't attached to a bird anymore. It had no job, no direction, no weight, and it simply floated slowly, endlessly, riding invisible winds. At night, when the world held its breath, the feather would drift above sleeping villages, over lakes still as glass, between the stars and rooftops, never landing, never needing to. Once a child saw it in a dream. She reached for it, but it danced just beyond her fingertips. Not teasing, just showing her how gentle things can be when they are not trying to be caught. The feather whispered without words, "You are allowed to be light. You are allowed to let go." The girl didn't understand, but she felt it. In her chest, in her breath, in the way her body softened as she let the dream carry her away. The next morning she told her mother, "I flew last night." And maybe she did, or maybe for the first time in a long time, she simply let herself fall. Without fear, we carry so much. Thoughts, worries, expectations. We go to bed not to rest, but to rehearse everything we can't control. But what if sleep isn't about shutting down? What if it's about letting go? You don't need to solve anything before you rest. You don't need to be perfect, productive, or prepared. You are allowed to put it all down, in the same way a feather releases the sky and trusts the air to carry it. Tonight, let your breath be light. Let your thoughts drift by. Let yourself float into sleep. Not because everything is done, but because you no longer need to hold it all. You are the feather, and rest is the wind.